There we go. And we'll just get started. We'll probably abbreviate this meeting just because it's just the four of us.
Sure.
I wanted to give you an update. Marlene has been working on our one sheet,
Right.
our single page starter guide.
Mm-hmm.
And we ran into just a wee little bit of a glitch, not a really big glitch, but the instructions that came from District 4 on their sheet are very specifically for somebody that has never logged into Basecamp or into Pathways and Basecamp yet.
Right.
And it's a little bit different if you have logged in and have registered or are registering for your path. So we're just working out how to word it, to change the wording a little bit differently so that it applies to a broader audience.
Okay. But we still need to let new people know how to.
We have to do both.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what we're going to do is say, if you've never logged in before, do this.
Oh, okay.
And if you have logged in before, do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So have two quick start guides then?
No, it'll all be on
or
one.
Just one. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just make those instructions a little broader to apply to everybody. Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't realize that if you'd never done it before, you were actually seeing slightly different screens from if you've actually done it. Because what I did was when Marlene sort of gave me a rough draft, I took it and I went on to see if I could follow the instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was telling me things that I wasn't seeing. So So we've sort of gone a little bit back to square one on that, but she is working on it and we're getting really close.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Okay, so I was just sort of doing some investigating around in the site, and I found a place on the TI website that is actually quite good for letting people know what the different paths involve. And having done a little bit of extra research, I've got some ideas about, because I think we need to help new people choose paths that are right for them. And I think we can expand on what TI has done and just talk just a wee bit today about who might choose that path and how they might apply it in their real life.
Mm-hmm.
Will that be helpful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so let's see if I can remember how to do this. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so what is everybody seeing?
Learn how to record your meetings. Oh.
Okay.
Oh, wait, no.
Berries in the background? Are you seeing a wallpaper with berries on it?
Oh, wait. Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
I just want you to know that all of those berries, that was a picture that I took from a pail of things that I collected out of my garden one afternoon.
Whoa.
Oh, wow.
I had a great big bin of strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, cherries.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so we go to the Toastmasters International website, and I have all logged in.
Kristen, all of a sudden I can hardly hear you, and I don't know if it's something I've done.
Is that better?
Your volume's dropped for me as well.
Yeah,
I can still hear you, but it's dropped.
Yeah.
Okay. How's that?
Yes,
that's better.
Better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I must have had it on too low. Okay, so everybody can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is the Toastmasters International website.
Right.
And I have already logged in. Okay, so this is what we see when we first log in.
Yes.
So if we go to Pathways.
Yeah.
And learn more.
Oh.
Okay. Pathways and learn more.
Yeah.
We go to this screen. And I have been here before
but I didn't take the time to scroll down. And if we scroll down, we see this paths and projects.
Mhm.
Okay, so if we click on each one,
Yeah.
we get a description. And we not only get a description of the path, but we get kind of a list of I guess they're projects. They're projects, but they don't elaborate on what you have to do for those projects. So it's not as comprehensive as the District 4 website.
Right. Mhm.
However, it would give everybody a general idea of what their projects are going to be themed, if you will. So you can see, as we've talked before, it lists the general theme of each of the 5 levels, and then it lists the projects that you will be doing, or at least what the projects are about, not the details of what's involved or how many speeches or that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So we can see in level 1, as we've talked about, there are 3 projects, but it doesn't tell us how many speeches and that kind of thing. So it's really very general. What I like about this is that it does tell us what our menus are of elective projects. So if we click on elective
Wow.
projects,
Mhm.
it tells us what we get to choose from.
Hmm.
So that as you, you know, and it doesn't tell you how many elective projects either. So, oh yes, it does.
Yeah, it does.
Two
Yeah.
of the following.
Good.
You're right. So choose 2 of the following. So
Mhm.
when people go in, they can look at this and click on these elective projects, and they can see how many they have to do and what their menu choices are. So I think that's kind of helpful.
Mhm.
And I would say that if we can break down what each of the paths are, so if we go back here and go down, we can get a much better idea of what each path is, what it involves.
Mhm.
So I think that that's really helpful. And then if we go right out of there,
Some people have sex even if they aren't in the mood.
what's that?
Well, my screen says some people have sex even if they aren't in the mood.
That's just that's MSN.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just find. I bookmarked a good site. Sorry, I bookmarked a site, but I didn't.
Hmm.
Here it is.
Huh.
No, that's not it either.
Oh.
No, no, that's the TI site. So never mind. Let's just go back to the TI site. Okay, so what I thought I'd do is just walk you through each of the paths, and we can just have a quick look at each of them. So I'm going to start with motivational strategies. I think that this path is mostly about communication, and it really focuses on being able to read audiences and gauge the connection with them, to engage small groups of people. So it's about getting small groups of people to do things, or getting them excited about things or enthusiastic about something.
Hmm.
So my thought is, and I'd love to hear your contributions as well, that if this path is specifically about motivating small groups, how could that be applied to the real world? Who would want to use this path?
Well, I think there's the assessment that you do when you first join, right? That kind of
Yes.
asks you a bunch of questions about what you want to learn and what you're like.
Well,
So I
it
think,
does, yes. But my question is, if we're telling people what the different paths are about, if we're just giving them a thumbnail overview,
Mm-hmm.
if we know that that there's a path that's specifically around leading and engaging small groups, what kinds of real life situations might that apply to?
Other than Toastmasters.
Well, it could be in Toastmasters.
Yeah.
Here's where I'm going with this. When we have a guest in our club,
Mm-hmm.
I will often ask them, what brings you to Toastmasters?
Mm-hmm.
What motivated you to come tonight?
Right.
And they'll say, well, I have a job where I'm having to give presentations. And so I really need to know how to speak in front of a group of people. Or I have a brand new job where I'm executive officer of a volunteer organization, and I need to know, I need some skills about being able to manage my time and plan projects and events and things like that. Now, a lot of people don't come to Toastmasters for that specifically, but
Mm-hmm.
once we get an idea of what their life situation is that brought them to us, and we engage them in conversation, we get a much better feel for what it is they're looking for, and we can even make suggestions to them.
Mm-hmm.
So my thought is that with motivational strategies, it's a very broad umbrella. It's not specific at all. And so anybody who is on a board of directors, who is an event planner of any kind.
Mm-hmm.
We have a brand new Toastmaster who joined Toastmasters because one of the things that she's taken on as a new resident is organizing the beach festival, being on that committee to organize the beach festival.
Wow.
So anybody that is involved in working with small groups, working with teams of any kind, actually,
Mm-hmm.
this would be a really great starter path, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for many. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, the only thing is I'm noticing that one is not offered in printed material.
Right.
So I understand where you're going with having a good kind of general starter path for people who may just want to get started with Toastmasters and don't really know enough about pathways to make an informed decision. And then you can just say, well, this is a really good one that will just cover a lot of generally applicable things that you learn in Toastmasters. But I'm wondering if something that has printed material available is a better recommendation.
Well, it might be. I think it would be contingent, don't you, on what that person's situation is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
It's
And
just,
really, today is really just about us becoming really familiar with each of the paths.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know about you, but I've been so occupied with learning how to navigate through a path and do the projects in a path and how everything fits together that I can't really say that I have spent a great deal of time looking at each of the paths and what it really has to offer and how it would apply.
Yeah, neither have I. And really, I've taken the view that, well, it's one path. I'll just pick one and do it. It doesn't really matter at this point.
Yeah.
If it doesn't exactly align with what I want to do, it doesn't matter. I'm still learning something.
Agreed.
So it doesn't really matter which path I've chosen, or frankly, like, I don't think it really matters for anybody, me either.
Well, I think it does.
Once
I
you're
think,
in,
yes.
once, yeah, I think once you've done one and you're like, well, I've chosen it. I didn't quite make the 30-day deadline to change my path, but I kind of knew that that wasn't exactly what it was. But I know what I want to do next. I think that's
Yeah.
probably.
Well, I think if we can encourage people to choose a path that engages them, we're more likely to keep them enthusiastic and engaged.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the ideal for sure.
Mm-hmm. So as we become more familiar and we are talking to people about what they want to get out of Toastmasters, if we have just a little bit better idea of what each path offers and how it might apply, I think that that's good fodder for conversation, and it's good fodder for mentorship, and I think it sends a very positive message to especially new Toastmasters that they really can tailor their experience.
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so we won't go too far into it, but you can see that this one, even though it's not in print, it's fairly broad, and so it would appeal to anybody who is working in groups. And there are some really interesting electives, of course, in this one. Lots to choose from. Lots and lots to choose from.
I like some of those electives. It's very interesting, and especially for a new Toastmaster coming in, it's a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so you can see that motivating, connecting with storytelling is one of them. I'm really looking forward to doing that elective if it's in my next path. Knowing your sense of humor, that's a fairly new one. That elective actually came out at the same time that the new engaging with humor path came out, our 11th path. Using descriptive language, you can see that some of these, inspiring your audience and effective body language, some of these are some of the fundamentals that we got out of our CC manuals. So, but obviously taking it a little bit step further. Okay, so let's go back and just have a look at presentation mastery this time. Now, most people come to Toastmasters to learn how to speak in public. I would say that presentation mastery is a really good one because it's almost all fundamentally about speaking skills. So it would certainly apply to somebody who was looking to do just that. But I think that it's more geared around people who are going to speak professionally in some way. Or speak for their work if they have to give presentations at work. If they, I've met many Toastmasters who say they came to Toastmasters because they've had an experience or something where they've got a message. They've got an important message that they want to get out, and they want to be a professional speaker. And so this one, a little bit less around the leadership skills, but certainly high on the speaking skills. And you can see in the elective projects here, lots of speaking, and I think that this one actually culminates in when you get up to level 5, you have to actually give a keynote speech. So a much longer speech, I think it's 20 minutes or more. You have to actually give a full keynote speech. So I would say that this one is more geared around speaker training.
Yeah.
Okay, leadership development. Now, I just finished dynamic leadership, which is about kind of how to lead others. This one seems to be more geared about developing yourself as a leader.
Oh.
So it's got lots of what I would call management skills in it, as opposed to leadership skills. It's got some planning. It's got time management skills, event planning. You have to actually write a plan for an event or something that you're organizing, and write out a plan and then follow it through. Time management skills, I said that. So I think, well, what do you think? Who would fit this path? Who would this path fit is a better way to say it, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, if you're in management, for sure.
Okay.
As a project manager, I can see a lot of symmetry between some of the skills that you can get from this and my job. So,
really?
Yeah, leadership development for sure. And they're so transferable.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, I can see this in a lot of things. It's just your if you own a plumbing shop, just for example, there's so much into that, like into and how do you plan your day? How does you know, how are you going to how are you going to treat the customer and stuff like that? So it's all about leadership. It's all about having a team.
Yeah.
You know, no, this is a big start for me, as far as I'm.
That's great. So perhaps a small business owner.
Yeah, well, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's so diverse. You can take those skills anywhere with
Right.
this one anyway.
Well, I like that in this one, that one of the major projects that you have to do is actually put a team together and plan an event.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put the plan together and present the plan, and then you have to carry through on the plan, and then report your experience.
That sounds like the high performance leadership.
In a way it is, without the guidance committee, etc.
Oh, okay.
It's a big one. Yeah, it's a big one, but it's not exactly the same as the high performance, but you're right, it's very close.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fairly good sized project.
Mm-hmm.
And then right on the heels of that, for somebody, Tim, as you were saying, in that kind of a situation, the next one would be innovative planning, and that is all about project management.
Well, that's the one that they suggested to me, and that's the one that currently, and it's on the back burner now. Before I do, or it's going to be there after I do my DTM2. So
great.
Yeah, I'll get right into it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so this builds your skills as a public speaker, a leader, and a project manager.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are some good public speaking skills involved in audience engagement and connection, for sure. Also in speech writing and delivering your speech. So I'm expecting that some of the electives are going to be, again, some good fundamentals that we see in our CC manuals. I think that you actually have to go through a step-by-step process in managing a project. And this one, you can see that in is it now? In level 5 up here, you actually do an HPL.
Right.
So that is a full-on HPL with the guidance committee and the whole works.
Mm-hmm.
It may have changed slightly from the one HPL that we do for our DTMs in Legacy,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's essentially the same process. So it can be in and out of or out of Toastmasters. You have to have your team. You go through the workbook. You have a guidance committee that helps you put your plan together. You present your plan. You follow it through, and then I think you give a speech about your learning or your experience, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So what I like is actually there's, I think, 3 or 4 paths where high performance leadership is one of the projects, one of the required projects.
As an elective or just as a mandatory?
I don't think it's an elective. You can see under demonstrating expertise in level 5, it's right there. So you actually have an HPL as a required project, the way I see it in this path.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
I thought at first that the HPLs were electives that could be sort of peppered throughout any path, but I see now that in looking a little further that the HPL is a required in some paths. And of course, our electives, when they say choose one of the following or 2 of the following, that's a minimum. We can do as many as we want. We can do electives till the cows come home if we want to, just the way we could do many, many CCs if we wanted to. And when I started Toastmasters, I thought, you know, there's so many opportunities that come up that don't exactly fit a manual somewhere. So I just kept doing CCs, and I just kept buying new CC manuals, and I'm sure many of us do that.
Yeah.
And I think I did 8 of them or 9 or something, and I know lots of people have done way more than that. So
Yeah, I've done 4.5.
Yeah, good for you.
Good
That's
for you.
excellent. Well, I started kind of just because I was speaking at events and I was speaking for clubs, and oftentimes I wasn't, you know, I didn't have a speech for a specific manual ready. I was on the slate to speak, and so I would give a speech and just do it out of my CC manual, and I ended up doing 1 a year for every year that I've been a Toastmaster.
Wow.
Good for you.
So, you know, I mean, as a coach, I think fundamentals are awesome.
Yes.
It's so important to go back to those fundamentals. So, yeah. So, anyway, there are some interesting elective projects in this one as well, I think. And Tim, as you say, between leadership development and innovative planning, the project management and planning skills are definitely in the forefront. So lots of situations.
That was a key into, well, you had to pick one, right? So that's the one that I'm interested on. First out of the gate, like type.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to visionary communication, because I think this is a really interesting one.
Yeah, that's the one I'm doing.
Are you? And how far into it are you?
I've only finished level 1.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So again, this one is a very broad umbrella and a very interesting, I'm going to call it a right-brained path. Because it's less about the technical side of things and more about just kind of capturing what your life vision is or what your life plan is. And I know a couple of people that are doing this, and what they're doing is they're very close to retirement. And so they are thinking about what their retirement is going to look like. And they chose this path for that reason. So it's really about certainly speech writing and delivery.
Mhm.
You have to, one of the main projects is to make a life plan or a long-term personal plan. Now that could also be a long-term professional plan. So it could certainly, this one could certainly apply to an executive officer or somebody in middle management, maybe even upper management in business. Could even be a small business owner. This would be excellent for. So there is very much a real life application. But I think for the average regular person who might have a job or might even have their own business, for whatever, if you've got anything coming up in your life where there's going to be change involved, my sense is that this would be a really good path. So it's about communication and certainly about how to articulate your thoughts and communicate them. So there's a big part of it that is around what they call strategic communication, which is communication with a very specific intent.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One of the skills is about being able to share information. So, you know, I mean, that's a very broad umbrella too. You can see that you actually have to develop a communication plan. So you have to be able to, for whatever it is that you're planning, you have to be able to break it down in steps so that everybody gets it and understands you. Some of the electives are around giving different types of speeches. I did that elective, deliver social speeches, and it's a really great elective to do. It's a really good one. There's some PR involved in that. There's some project management involved. You've probably noticed that in a lot of these elective projects, there are some technical skills around using visual aids or podcasting or blogging.
Mhm.
Notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the electives, I didn't do this path, but one of the electives I chose in my path was to moderate a panel discussion. And
Funny you mentioned that.
yeah.
That's my first one in the facilitated discussion one. Have you ever done this one? Facilitated discussion?
I have.
After I do the speech tomorrow, and being a Toastmaster and the role of Toastmaster, I'll have my silver done.
Great.
And
congratulations.
thank you.
Yeah.
My goal would be to do facilitating discussion, like a 5-week theme on pathways. And the first one is
you mentioned that.
the panel moderator. So yeah, I've never done it before, so we'll see how it goes.
Tim, that is awesome. That's going to be certainly a real life situation within Toastmasters. But can any of you come up with real life situations where we might have to do that outside of Toastmasters?
Wow.
It's not certainly in my field. I can't see it, but
okay. So I'll tell you a couple of experiences that I've had where I've used those skills. One of them was when I was president of the a women's business network. We had an event called Wise Women, and we chose 5 women out of the community that were what we would consider mentors. And we had a panel discussion where we gave them a few questions ahead of time. And then the event for the evening was a 2-hour event. Each of the women gave their answers to those questions and fielded questions from the audience. It required a facilitator. And from there, I twice now have moderated a municipal election panel.
Oh, wow.
Not a debate, but a panel.
Yeah.
And that is a wonderful experience. So the both Parksville and Qualicum come to Toastmasters looking for moderators as well as timers for their municipal elections. And so there's a couple of us that have done that numerous times, and it's extremely rewarding. And then the other time that I did that, when I was actually doing this project, was at a COT, where we had the panel was around ethical leadership, and we had a panel discussion around ethical leadership. So I chose, I think, 6 or 7 Toastmasters, and one was a non-Toastmaster who had been in leadership positions, and I prearranged some questions for them, and that became one of the events at the COT, and it was really well received. I think it was really timely, and I think that the ethics piece of it was a good reminder for everybody about some things, and a very rewarding and interesting elective. Yeah, highly recommend it. Okay, let's move right along. Strategic relationships. Now this one I'm really curious about. Is anybody doing strategic relationships?
No.
Okay, well, I can tell you I know somebody who is, and they are a real estate agent. And so I can certainly see that this would be a really good one for anybody working in, I have a friend who coaches Special Olympics. And
oh, interesting.
yes. And he also coaches Special Olympics, and he's trying to get a little speaking workshop started up for the Special Olympians. And he also teaches the speaking portion of the Sea Cadets and Air Cadets training. So he's working with teenagers, and he's teaching them how to get up and deliver speeches. And so he, in order to promote what he's doing and get funding and do all of the things that he's doing on a volunteer basis, he has to make connections with people, and he has to have PR skills. He also has to be able to make those strategic connections. So I think that this one is for people who really want to get out of their comfort zone and learn about networking, because I think that's one of the electives. Yeah, I think that this would be a really good one for educators, volunteers, anybody in PR, anybody in sales of any kind, anybody promoting a business, or even learning how to promote themselves, which is a very hard thing to do. I think this is a really great path, and I think one of the projects seems to be around being involved in a volunteer organization of some kind outside of Toastmasters, and demonstrating your skills as a leader and a communicator. So the elective projects for this one, again, all of the paths, of course, are choosing from approximately 60 or 65 electives, so there's going to be some overlap. I don't think that there are any of the electives that only appear in one path. So there's definitely crossover. Preparing for an interview, using presentation software. So obviously there are some technical skills. Tim, I think managing a difficult audience, I believe that is, there's a similar project in your facilitating discussion, if I remember correctly, where you actually have to give a presentation and you've got plants in the audience, 4 or 5 plants that disrupt you and ask stupid questions and talk while you're speaking and generally are disruptive, and you have to have this, they get to just kind of do their thing. You just tell them what they're, not what to say, but how to disrupt the meeting, and then you've got to demonstrate your skill and ability at bringing the meeting back on track.
You're absolutely right. It's number 4, handling challenging situations.
Yeah, well, it's a fun one to organize. And let me tell you, when I was doing the municipal elections, I didn't have to have any plans.
No, they were all out there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going through this. It's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Mine included a drunk.
Oh.
Whoa. Did you have him kicked out?
I sweet talked him out of the room. Yeah.
Oh.
How did you do that?
Well, it's a long story, but
Yeah.
I acknowledged him. I acknowledged him for sure. I didn't just cut him. I mean, that's the trick, right?
Yeah.
To make him believe that leaving was his own own decision.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's too long a story to go into now, but
Okay.
I'll tell it one day. That's the problem with having using a bar, a bar where a conference room where the bar is open in the next room. Yeah, not a good plan. Getting back to strategic planning, yeah, not a good plan. Okay, so dynamic leadership. Now, this one I can tell you. This is about understanding your leadership style and being able to understand other styles as well, but mostly and most importantly, being able to gauge and be flexible and adapt to whatever style is needed in the circumstance. So that one is definitely learning how to do many dance steps. And it's quite interesting. And I don't know whether it's red car syndrome. Does everybody know what that is? Red car
Insurance rates
syndrome.
are hard. Yeah.
No.
As soon as you buy a red car, you see that same
Oh,
red car
yes,
all
yes,
over
yes.
on the street. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see many circumstances now where I have to adapt my default leadership style. And I think just recognizing what my own default leadership style is has really helped me. It's a path that there's a lot of introspection in this path. And it really goes down into the core of who you are, and an understanding of how changeable we really are. That to say this is my style, take it or leave it, is the world doesn't work that way.
No, it's not effective.
It's not effective at all. And I think for me, understanding that I don't do it so much now, but certainly it used to be that it was just so much easier to do everything myself than it was to engage people in doing things, because then I just knew it was going to be done right. And how much I was missing and how many opportunities I was taking away from others. So this one really is about becoming the kind of leader that I would call more a servant leader, where you truly are focused on the development of other people and how you can develop other people and how you can collaborate, and that doing it all yourself, sometimes that works, but usually it doesn't. Usually it's completely ineffective, as you say, Mary. So I found that you'll notice that the final project of every path is to reflect on your path. And surprisingly, I found this to be one of the most difficult projects in the path, and yet one of the most effective, because it's something that the legacy program doesn't do. and once you finish those manuals, you check off the box, you do a little dance, you say hooray, and you tuck it away somewhere. And maybe you refer to it once in a while, but when it's done, it's kind of done. I mean, I had used to thrill at marking complete.
Yeah.
Check that off,
Yeah,
put it in the box. You know?
I'm an expert now.
I mean, short of stapling it closed, you know, it was done. It was done, and it went in the folder.
Yeah.
So this one requires you to go back and look at your learning and cherry pick 3 or 4 of the pearls that really stayed with you. Some of the things that you have become or that you learned that you didn't know before that really resonated with you.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think that it's very vulnerable. You know, it's a very vulnerable place to be, but I think that's maybe one of its objectives.
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be very difficult, but it really, I think, makes the learning sticky when you really have to condense it into a speech. And it's about a 10-minute speech. When you condense it into a speech, your whole journey. So I reflected not only on what I had learned, but also about the adventure of going through the path, and to help people who were just in level 1 or 2 understand that level 3, 4, and 5 increase in difficulty as well as commitment. That they're bigger projects, and there's more work and more speeches, and but lots of fun. And so elective projects, some of them were technical, some of them not so much. Networking, you can see prepare for an interview is in there, some visual aids and some storytelling, descriptive language, presentation software, lots of PR, managing difficult audience again, podcasting, social media, lots of things. Yeah. And prepare to speak professionally. There's one. I didn't even notice that one when I was choosing. So, yeah. Okay. Carrying on. Persuasive influence. Again, I think that when you are dealing with diverse groups of audiences, this one is teaching you how to be a communicator and do it in flexible, innovative kinds of ways. So it's there's some negotiation skills involved in this one, some interpersonal communication, certainly some public speaking skills. This one also has a high performance leadership project in level 5. I think for me, a classic example of this particular one is a fellow I know who is a golf pro, and he oftentimes has to moderate a tournament. And at the end of a golf tournament, of course, everybody has a meal and prizes are given out and thank yous and all that kind of thing. And he had a couple of experiences where he got up in front of the audience and he couldn't speak.
Oh.
Yeah. And so he came to Toastmasters, and this is the path that he chose. And I think that understanding how to negotiate, deal with difficult people, conflict, that kind of thing is going to be really good for him, as well as many of the public speaking skills that are involved in this.
That's also my path.
Is it? And how far are you?
I'm level 1.
Okay.
Done 2 projects. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, you can see what's coming down the pike for you. You've got lots of choices around tailoring what it is that you are looking for. And now you said that you just kind of chose a path. Are you?
Oh, I was thinking like that wouldn't be, I was just saying that wouldn't necessarily be a bad way to go.
Okay.
For if someone was clueless, I think, this wouldn't hurt. What I did was I did the assessment, and then I got innovative planning, but I didn't like it, so I chose this instead.
Oh, great. Well, I will be very interested in hearing about your adventure as you get into the higher levels, which electives you choose and that kind of thing.
Sure,
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead. All right.
Oh, no.
So
yeah, no, that's it.
The next one is effective coaching. And that one is going to be my second path. I'm just starting it. I'm looking forward to it as well. And it does involve a high performance leadership project. So, so I've got that to look forward to, and I haven't chosen my electives yet, but I think it's a good idea to use this site to go ahead and get a feel for what electives, even if you narrow it down to a choice of 5 of your electives, so that you can start thinking about those projects now and how you're going to do them. I think that's one of the complaints that I've heard about Pathways, is that you can't kind of look ahead. I don't know whether this is right, wrong, or in between, but I have a member in my home club who has just started her path. She's just done an icebreaker. But she wanted to give a presentation specifically around, she's taken over our club website, and there were some changes. And so she wanted to be able to translate all of the screenshots into a PowerPoint presentation. And it was a new project for her. So she managed to get the project list for her path. And she did that elective right after her icebreaker.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I think, and that was using presentation software. So I think if we can use this site to look ahead, we can be a little bit flexible, as we have always been with our advanced manuals and our CL and CC, etc., in fitting our assignments to things that we are doing in real life within Toastmasters or without. Okay, now team collaboration is the next one. And I want to go through this one very quickly because I'd like to have a quick look at the newest one. Okay, so team collaboration is lots of listening skills, lots of motivation skills, lots of collaborating skills. There's some project or some conflict management comes into that. And there is a fairly major project that you have to do in level 5 around putting a team together and leading that team. Okay, so let's take a quick look at our newest one, which is engaging humor. Okay, so we've got our usual level 1 and 2. Then we've got the power of humor in an impromptu speech. That sounds interesting, doesn't it? Wow, I wonder what's involved in that. I would say probably if you really wanted to focus on the humor part of it, the storytelling would be really good. Connecting with your audience would be good. Social speeches would be good. Effective body language would be good one. Inspiring. Yeah, descriptive language. All of those would be really good electives to choose. And here, maybe public relations or question and answer session would be a really interesting one to do. Really interesting. And then we've got, here's where high performance becomes an elective. So I wasn't totally wrong. So you could do a high performance leadership as an elective here. And leading, lessons learned, moderate a panel. I don't know, these seem like funny choices for a humor one
Yeah.
to me. Although I'd be mortified if it said you had to do a stand-up comedy routine or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so does everybody have a little bit better, now that we've just sort of done a tiptoe through the tulips here, a little bit better idea of what the menu is for the paths?
Absolutely. This is really good. Thank you.
Excellent. Good. I'm hoping that at our next meeting, we're going to be able to look at our sheet.
Oh, right.
And be able to see if there are some edits and that kind of thing that we want. And I certainly am hoping that it's going to be ready to roll by the time we meet next.
Okay.
Does anybody have anything to add to today's meeting before we close?
Kristen, will you be around the Victoria area in the month of May?
I'm not sure. Possibly.
Because I'd really like to invite you to one of my 5 projects, so that you can drop by or whatever. I know it's time consuming and whatever, but if you were ever in the area, I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider dropping by our club.
Well, thank you for the invitation. I'd love to. What time? When does your club meet?
Monday nights.
Monday nights.
It's difficult. There's no question about that. But
yeah, it can be. Yeah.
Either that or through video. I don't know how to do it through video though.
Well, let's have a chat offline, and we'll work it out.
Sure. Yeah.
I can help with the video if you want, Tim.
Oh, that'd be great. Anyway, it'll be not until May anyway, so
okay.
We could talk before then and just see.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, just I think it would be interesting for both of us to go through this. It's going to be a major, because I'm sure Sarah can attest that I get the sense that there's still that confusion of pathways in our club. We have a new member joining. His first meeting is going to be tomorrow night, so we want to make sure that we take the next step properly.
Absolutely.
And so anyway.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I congratulate you on that. And whether it's by video or not by video, my request would be that on that particular night that I am also your evaluator.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll talk more about that.
Sure. Yeah.
And in the meantime, thank you everybody for being here and giving up some of your Sunday morning. I'm glad that it's just 10 o'clock and we can all go out and play. I'm going to take my dog for a walk.
We're meeting again in 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks, yep.
Yeah, 28.
Okay, so not this weekend.
Right, and I'll send you out a reminder.
Oh, that's perfect.
And it's at 9 o'clock again.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Kristen. It was really helpful.
Good.
Thank
Excellent.
Bye-bye.
Good.
Bye.
Bye-bye.